You're listening to Our Two Satoshis podcast with hosts Justin and Billy from CryptoBiz.com.
This episode is brought to you by
FireandLace.com, where you can use cryptocurrency to buy something for him or her.
Available at FireandLace.com.
Back in the saddle. Feels like it's been forever, Billy, since we did our last podcast.
Yeah, it was a bit like, I don't even know how long it's been, like 2 years?
Well, yeah, our last one, I did that interview. If our listeners listened with the Claros CEO, had him on for a little Q&A session. You weren't there, unfortunately, because of a little bit of a family emergency, but how you doing, man?
Doing good. Had to put a pet down, but, it's the circle of life. Now I have a little kitty in my lap, so,
A little gremlin the way you talk.
Huh?
A little gremlin the way you've been talking.
Oh, yeah, dude. Like, I didn't think a little kitten would be like having a baby. Like, I was up at like 4:30 this morning, and I'm sure anybody that has a kid like you is going to punch me in the nuts for trying to make that comparison, but like 4:30 this morning, just running circles around us, jumping on pillows, scratching our hair. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
It actually sounds you might have a little worse off than I do. My wife breastfeeds, so I don't even have to get up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, my girlfriend was pissed this morning because the cat was messing with her more than me. And I'm just like, yeah, kind of brushing her off, but she just kept jumping on Rachel's head.
That's hilarious.
It's been fun.
Amy's been talking to me for so long about trying to talk me into getting a cat. I'm like, no. Cats are, like, there are some cool cats, but then I remember, like, my buddy's cat, it was probably the size of a mountain lion. Like, it was pretty freaking big. And that cat was so mean, it could corner you in the house. Like, you couldn't get around it or it was going to attack you. And I don't want some demon cat like that, so I'm not even taking the chance.
Yeah, no, we were pretty strategic with our selection. We went to this person's house, and they had, I think, 6 or 7. And we're like, all right, whichever one comes to us first, let's just take that one. And it turned out to be the one that we have. And, she was like the alpha female.
So hold on. So was that strategy a good strategy then? Yeah,
no, it actually worked out. I mean, I don't know. There was one that was kind of special ed looking that I kind of wish I would have gotten. You just, like, she was like super fluffy and a little bit smaller and didn't really know what the hell was going on. One that probably would just be like more like the other cat that I have, just sitting there, just staring at the wall for 3 hours. No,
Can you return
her? Yeah, 30-day return policy.
Just take her back while Rachel's at work. Rachel comes back and there's a different kitten there.
It's the same one, Dave. I don't know what you're talking about.
It didn't change. What are you talking about? Just staring at the wall.
Exactly. No, she's super fun.
So let's. Oh, what? What was that?
Keeps me young.
Yeah, that's the fountain of life right there. Get a crazy kitten.
Yeah.
So let's talk some crypto, dude. So what's on your time? Actually, before we get into anything new, did you have a chance to listen to our last podcast that you weren't there, where I interviewed the Claros CEO?
Yeah, that was a really solid one. I mean, I'm sorry I missed that, but it was nice to kind of just hear the back and forth between you two. No, I think that was probably one of my favorites, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's going to be definitely a great platform. I mean, that arbitration, issues that you see nowadays with, this global economy that we have and all this freelance work. I mean, you've done a ton of freelance work yourself. Have you ever had any issues with payment? Maybe not, but
yeah, I mean, not so far. I mean, I haven't done. I mean, I'm sure if I did a lot more, I would probably come across it. But for the most part, it hasn't really been an issue. But I mean, that's not to say that there aren't issues, because there always are.
I mean, you could definitely see yourself utilizing something like that, though, in the future.
Yeah, there's definitely a market for that. It's going to be a fun one to watch for sure, because I think there is a market for it, and I think they're doing it the right way. And it's neat to see that them kind of base it on like this, old way of doing things with new technology. Mm-hmm. That was cool.
Yeah, I mean, going back to when we had that app developed at one time, we got it developed by that Ukrainian developer. I mean, we're never going to go to Ukraine and freaking sue this guy. So like,
Exactly.
this is a good coverall for those types of situations right there. So it was very interesting.
Hmm.
And actually, mentioned in that podcast, and you can touch on this a bit, but he recommended 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, the book, and we both got it and read it.
Yeah, yeah, man. I ran through that in a couple of days. Um, that was a really good book. It's definitely one of those things that it kind of like reignites a spark. Um, definitely changes your frame of mind, the way you think about um, bringing new concepts to life. Is it worth making like a, I don't know, I'm trying to think like a good example. Like, should you make like a grape jelly, or should you like make a different type of jelly altogether? You know what I mean? Like, that's the 0 to 1 instead of I think it's like one to n or
Hmm.
1 nth. It's like make something that's really extraordinary, something that there's no competition, where you own the monopoly on it, instead of turning it up just a little bit from what's already there. You know, I mean, but it's also tomatoes too, because there's plenty of happy people out there that have made products that were just small improvements on, pre-existing products. But nonetheless, it's a really awesome book, and I definitely recommend it. Pretty small too.
Yeah, it wasn't that long. It was only like 200 pages. What stuck with me the most was really in the beginning there, where Peter Thiel talks about what he asks every employee that comes in or people that interview with him, and it's what truth do very few people out there in the world agree with you on, and the one that stuck was what his logic on it is that everybody thinks that competitiveness and capitalism go hand in hand. But really, you want to find something that you can build that you can essentially have a monopoly on. And the main reason for that is that when you're competing with everybody, it's really just going to be a price war.
Hmm.
When you're creating a monopoly, you're actually innovating and creating something brand new, which
Right.
is,
Yeah, it's like getting that like leapfrog, like being like I think it's 10x, like basically like an order of magnitude above your strongest competitor.
hmm if you're going to do a 1 to N product, you need to do something that's at least 10x.
Yeah, yeah,
Otherwise, it's just going to be a price war. Yeah. Yep.
exactly.
Um, So kind of, on that topic, actually, let's we're a day late on this, but happy Bitcoin Pizza Day.
Hmm. Yeah, actually, I did have pizza yesterday.
I
It,
actually
it
did
was free though.
myself.
Nice.
Yeah, it wasn't so back in 2010, if you all don't remember, I'm sure you've heard of it, but a engineer traded Bitcoin for some pizza, and it was the first like real world transaction for Bitcoin.
Hmm.
And he traded 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 pizzas. So as of yesterday, those 2 pizzas would have been worth an estimated, 80 to 90 million dollars.
So insane.
He actually doesn't really regret it either, from what I
Really.
read, because uh, he was actually also one of the first ones to do a transaction on the Lightning Network, and this was back in February where he traded Bitcoin on a very small amount, 0.0006 or something Bitcoin for pizza. So much different outlay that time, but he's like this the first transaction guy for digital currency, which is cool.
I like it. I mean, I just wonder how much money he has. If he had 10,000 back then, is he just sitting on like $1 billion?
Well, it's actually they from what I read, he sold, so he got it via mining, and he sold the rest of his Bitcoin when it reached $1. So
Oh
he got
man.
about $4,000 after that, and he used that to buy a new computer.
Damn it. That would suck so bad.
Yeah, but like I said, for some reason he doesn't regret it. So whatever,
Yeah.
I'd be regretting it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be alive at this point for that. No,
Could have jumped off a bridge by now.
$82 million for 2 pizzas, crazy.
Yeah. Kind of switch gears. In podcasts that we previously done, I've kind of mentioned where Robinhood stood on their recent uh, state. What are we going to call it?
offerings.
Yeah, sure. State offerings.
Hmm.
Because, they're cranking out slowly but surely. I think the last time we spoke about this, there was only a handful. Um, and now there's up to 2, 4, 6,
If I remember correctly, when we last spoke
14.
about it, it was like Louisiana just got added, or Mississippi, or something like that.
Yeah, it was Mississippi. hmm And now since then they've offered like 5 or 6 more. They've basically doubled since then.
Well, the
It's
virus is
crazy.
spreading.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
It's in Pennsylvania. It's not too far away.
that's well, that was like right before the podcast where we were talking about how in 2016 there were only 60 hedge funds that traded digital currency, and now just in the last year there's been over 100 that have opened up. So that's the virus spreading right there, you know.
Yeah, man. And yeah, it's in my opinion, I think it's still so early too. Like people, it's kind of like how I used to be. I was like, man, I missed the boat back in 2014. But I think there's still so much opportunity. Like we're still like in the first inning. You know what I mean? It just
It,
seems like it's too late to catch up with, but I don't think so.
well, the thing with us is that we pay attention to it daily, so it's
hmm
always in our face, you know. That's why it seems like it's been going on for a while. But it's funny. The other day I was talking to one of my wife's uncles who has a few, a little bit of scratch in his pocket, and he laughed at me saying, "When's the bubble gonna burst? Ha ha," you know.
hmm
And even like the simplest things, he's a very very bright guy, but the simplest things he didn't know about it. He just knew that bubble from news.
Right.
Like I explained to him, well, there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin ever. He had no clue that there was a finite amount on them.
hmm
That leads, to the price rise. That's a huge contributor to the price rise. So kind of the point that I'm making with this little spiel right here is that there are people out there that have these buzzwords that they see in the news, but they don't actually understand much about what's going on in digital currency.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about what the news actually talks about, all they talk about is either some hack that may have happened or the price. That's it. They don't talk about developments. They don't talk about Lightning Network. They don't talk about scarcity, fungibility. They don't talk about anything that actually matters.
And a lot of these older school guys, they listen to these names that have been out there prevalent, in the financial world for so long. So one of the ones that he even mentioned was Jamie Dimon. And
Mhm.
we've seen all these things about, a few months ago, Jamie Dimon saying that uh, Bitcoin was a fraud, and then he kind of walked back those statements and stuff and believes that blockchain technology is going to be around. He just doesn't know if Bitcoin's it. Well, now, JP Morgan is opening up trading desks and
Exactly.
starting to trade digital currency and everything like that. So I think once kind of those big names, those older big names start to come around, that's when the older community will then start to come around to digital currency.
hmm Yeah, I saw something on that same note about Buffett and how in the past he has claimed that he was wrong about Google, wrong about Amazon, all these big tech companies. And so everybody's like, well, don't you think you might be wrong about this one too? Even though it's not a company. Like tech is not your thing, man.
Well,
Like,
I didn't read into this article, so I have no details on this, but I saw something the other day. It was a headline that Warren Buffett is actually already trading blockchain in certain ways. And I don't think it's digital currency in particular per se, but it's like subsidiaries that he own have, value in these other companies that, that work in digital currency. Like I said, I don't know a lot about it, but I think maybe he doesn't even know that he's trading some of this stuff.
right. Yeah, some hotshot intern. Um, yeah, I mean he's a value investor, so this isn't his game anyways.
Yeah.
Like he's investing in like C's candy. It's like 200 years old that nobody cares about. So,
Actually, I did read an article about him a couple weeks ago where it was in the 50s or 60s he put like $140 or $100 into the S&P, and and now it would be worth like $100,000 or something like that, or 150 grand.
uh-huh.
And he said if you watch that year over year, that turns a profit. He's like, as long as that's doing good, just keep piling money in the S&P, just keep doing that, and you'll be fine in the long run. But that's not going to get me to $1 million that quickly. So
Yeah, I think the whole thing there is like, yeah, that's That's certainly true, but it's going to take you a long time.
Mhm.
If you don't have the patience like he does, crypto is the game.
So here's my big question. I've seen a bunch of moves. I want to get your take on this. I've seen so many moves lately of what Coinbase is doing. So now Coinbase is taking, their profits and they're piling it into all these blockchain startups, and they're trying to, basically create their own, venture fund
Mhm.
to do all of this. You think Coinbase is going to be the stalwart that's around, 5, 10 years from now, the big dog, or do you think somebody's going to come in and compete with them pretty heavy?
I mean, I think they have a lot of things going for them. They have, that venture capital money that got them up and started. They're, one of the first movers. They have a huge advantage in those two ways. I mean, if somebody's going to knock them off, it would have to be something really incredible. But I just don't know what that could be. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but I think it would have to be something really, really extraordinary.
You don't think it's going to be something like Robinhood?
Well, so Robinhood's a good one. I think if somebody's going to try and eat their lunch and have a shot at it, I think that's going to be it. But I still think Coinbase is going to have that upper leg on them.
Uh, I've also seen mention of Square taking them on because Square Cash app allows you to accept cryptocurrency.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's going to
but
be an interesting race there between the three of them. Um, I think it's going to be Coinbase number one, and then Square and Robinhood close two and three. But hey, who the hell knows? Uh, I don't know.
so
Uh,
what else you got on the docket? You got anything else that you've been looking into? Any particular coins? You got any picks? How's your masternodes doing?
yeah, man, I got to tell you, I've been getting lazy since I got these master nodes set up. Um, but I'm going to tell you, I am getting back into doing some research and kind of laying out some good investments. Um, it's about time to jump back into that. I do have some cash to play around with, partially because of these master nodes. Um, so if you guys haven't jumped in yet, I highly recommend going to GenCoin, set one up. Um,
Well, Gencoin just
yeah,
put out a new utility for their token, right?
yeah. So now you can actually vote on what coins get added to the platform, like what master nodes you can set up, which is pretty cool. Previously they had a small committee that they kind of set up within uh, their own party, so to speak. And I guess they just decided they would rather have the community be part of it, which I think is a solid move. And so now, if you own a masternode, you can actually vote with that masternode who jumps on board. So that's pretty cool.
The token actually increased. I think it was like 20% on that news. So
Uh-huh.
not only are you generating those masternode, the payouts, but the token's increasing there as well.
Exactly. Man, that chart is looking beautiful too. It's just stair stepping, like, bottom left to top right.
There's still only like less than 1.5 million tokens out there for that as well.
Uh-huh. It's only on one exchange that nobody's even heard of. Um, I know they're waiting on their Telegram group or Telegram channel to reach 1,000 users. And once they reach that point, they're going to reapply to CoinMarketCap. That should, bring some visibility there. And
Well, and hopefully getting
yeah,
on more exchanges would be, one of the
exactly.
keys as well.
Yeah, I mean their volume's steadily climbing too. I mean they're still only at roughly 100,000, 120,000 24-hour volume, but uh, slow and steady growth. I think it's highly underrated. So we'll see.
Seems like every second I'm seeing new news come out. Like I just saw where Mitsubishi just conducted a pilot payment using a major Thailand bank, and they were able to transfer money from Thailand to Singapore using
Nice.
blockchain technology. So
Every day, man.
yeah, there was also news recently that, and I've hinted at this and talked about this for a while, but that Russia and Iran are looking into cryptocurrency more hardcore even now to get around the U.S. sanctions.
You know what? I saw something about this, but it had to do with Google Trends, like what people were searching in those respective countries compared to everybody else. Essentially, like the Western world, everybody else except for Iran and Russia. So everybody else besides those two countries are searching for Bitcoin specifically. Those two countries, cryptocurrencies. That's like the top search term. I thought that was interesting.
I still wonder what the ramifications on the global scale if countries start utilizing things like that to get around sanctions. I mean, that's way more than money. I mean,
Oh yeah, that's when shit gets real.
I mean, there can be battles and wars started over this shit because of this, like.
I mean, it's another form of money.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
yeah, I'm just waiting for the first Bitcoin war.
it's gonna do all these great things for the world, but sometimes we don't look at the effect of all these great things that are happening. There's gonna be all these negative consequences as well.
hmm Yeah, I mean, there's always that balance, and hopefully it stays on the positive side, but whenever you have disruption, there's going to be some negative there. I'm just looking at this Bitcoin chart, wondering when it's going to moon.
Yeah, I see Walmart's filing for Bitcoin patents and blockchain patents. It's awesome. So that's all I really got for today. Just wanted to do a quick podcast today, and then we'll do another one next week. You got anything else you want to cover before we roll out, or are you good?
I think that's it, man. I'm definitely going to have an article out for our next podcast, so maybe I'll just talk about it instead of writing about it. But either way, I'll have a dark horse or some kind of small cap to talk about, make some money with. Besides that, that's all I have.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Well, we will catch you all on the flip side. Talk to you next week on Our Two Satoshis.
Later.
Later.
Peace.